Welcome back to Case Studies. Today we are talking about the 6 philosophies that have impacted my life in a meaningful way. Another word or language for philosophy is paradigm, but most of it is just the way that you see the world. And I think the reason why these are important to me, because how you see the world will impact the way that you go about your daily life. And so I want to jump into some of these that I've learned early that have fundamentally changed kind of the results of my life, happiness level, ability to go perform and kind of experience the life that I want to go live. So the first one is the law of the farm. And the law of the farm, the contrast or the opposite of the law of the farm is the law of the school. This comes from Stephen Covey and the philosophy that principles govern. And the farm, it's so symbolic and it's so easy to think of a farm and look at a farm and understand that different things happen at different cycles on the farm. And that if you skip any step, you're going to compromise the harvest. And so the law of the farm states that in the spring you prepare, and in the summer, you water and you move pipe and you make sure that the seed can grow. You plant in the spring, you water in the summer, and in the fall, you harvest. And if you skip any of those steps, if you fail to plant in the spring, or you take time off in the middle and you don't water, or you do both of those steps, you do a tremendous amount of planting, you put in all the work in the summer and you have this beautiful, abundant harvest and you don't go out and do the work to harvest the results, you don't get the result from the farm. And it's so obvious in the physical world, but it's less obvious in our personal life. The contrast to that is the law of the school. And the way that Covey describes the law of the school is he'll ask the question of cramming and he'll say, how many of you guys have ever crammed in school? And, his students would raise their hands and he would say, how many of you have been successful in cramming in school? And they would also raise their hands. And this technique of putting off the work, waiting till the last minute, doing as much as you can possibly do, in the very kind of tail end, right before the test, right before the deadline, and regurgitating that information and getting through the test. You can get a degree without getting an education. And so understanding and implementing and believing in the law of the farm, that you reap in proportion to what you sow, and to think differently is naive, has impacted me so much. And the way that I implement that, or the way that I put that to work in my personal life, is all of the roles in my life, I think of them, with the lens of a farm. And so with my body, it's understanding that, I need to put in work on a daily basis. I need to put in physical work on a daily basis to be able to have a healthy body. It's if I want to get better at golf, it's understanding that I need to go put in work consistently over time at the right times to be able to get better at golf. If I want to have a successful marriage, if I want to have a successful relationship with my kids, if I want to have a incredible career, if I want to be educated, if I actually want to know the content. And so it's in polar opposites. And the reason that the farm works and the law of the school doesn't work, school is an artificial system. So you can game the system, get a result without getting the actual result that you're looking for, is to become educated and to learn the skills and get the capabilities to go make a difference in the world. So law of the farm, as far as a paradigm or a lens or a way to see the world, has impacted me so much and changes behavior as far as what I do on a daily basis and how I think about these roles in my life and the work and the sequence that I put in time. Number 2 is similar to number 1, but different. Number 2, it's the 10,000 hour rule. Malcolm Gladwell made this kind of rule or law famous in the book Outliers. And the high level, it basically states that it takes 10,000 hours to become expert in something. And that for you to be world class, that you need to go put 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. And it goes contrast to the get rich quick or to do the least amount of work for the most amount of benefit paradigm. It goes back to the law of the farm. It goes back to this idea that you reap in proportion to what you sow. But it also takes it a step further in that you can have anything in the world that you want, but you can't have everything. And that every level of success, there's trade-offs. And you have to say no to good things if you want to get great things. And so when you see an Olympic athlete, and I think Olympic athletes or Broadway singers or professional athletes, it's so easy to see excellence because it's in that physical world. I remember watching the Olympics and seeing Shaun White win the Olympics. And it was so fun for me because I grew up snowboarding, big Shaun White fan, watched him kind of take over the world of snowboarding and skateboarding at a young age. But he's going into the final run, and he's in second place. And he's getting up at the very top. And before this run, earlier in the year, he had had one of the worst crashes of his career. He landed on the edge of the half pipe, had literally ripped off half of his face and had to get, reconstructive surgery. And I can only imagine like standing at the top of this half pipe, having one of those injuries where, you literally should have died, and you have to be perfect in this moment. And he was perfect. He threw a perfect run and won gold. And I remember seeing that and literally just getting emotional and starting to like crying. And I'm like, why am I crying? Why am I like emotional watching this snowboarding run? And I think the reason is that you were watching something that was excellent and watching something that was world class. But it's also obvious that Shaun White had given his life to that sport. And that's the reason that he got the result. And so anytime that you see excellence in the physical world, you will see a tremendous amount of effort or energy or time that's put into that trade to become best in the world. And so it's interesting, especially when I'm working with young entrepreneurs or young people that are trying new things and they're frustrated because they're bad at that thing, or they're scared to make mistakes, or they're scared that they won't be good at something. It's important to note that you won't be good at something. Like by definition, you have to be bad before you're good. Like you have to start at hour number 1 to get on that journey of 10,000 hours, but understanding that rule and those two rules combined, that there is a law of the farm, you reap in proportion to what you sow, to think differently is naive, and that everything has a sequence, and that also it takes a decade. It takes a decade of deliberate practice and focused, consistent effort to go get the results that you want in any given category. It's actually incredibly empowering because you can start a track and you can start a routine and you can start on a road to go try new things and be a new person. When I interviewed Astrid Tumenis, that was one of the things that was the most impressive about Astrid. She's the president of UVU. She's had this exceptional career, but something that she said about herself is she is a workaholic. She just outworks everybody. And she's recreated herself so many different times, but every single time it's that same formula of going back, figuring out what you want, committing to the long term, and then going and putting in a tremendous amount of work and starting that 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. The third paradigm or personal philosophy that's impacted my life the most is this paradigm or philosophy of emotional bank accounts. It goes back to Stephen Covey and this idea that people, all of us, if you can see people and have this idea that we all have emotional bank accounts with each other, and that you're either taking withdrawals or you're making deposits. And there's some times where by accident you take a significant withdrawal. either on purpose or by accident, that you hurt that account. And the idea is that if you're consistent with creating value for the people in your life, that when you make those mistakes or when you screw up, that there's so much trust and deposit in that account that people will give you the benefit of the doubt. And all of us have been in this scenario where, two people do the same thing to you, and one of those people, you give them the complete benefit of the doubt. You know that wasn't their intention, and you forgive them really, really quickly. Where somebody else, it's immediate judgment, and you're going straight to the point, and you're trying to get justice, and you feel like you're wrong or you're offended. And so much that comes down to that relationship is bankrupt. We've overdrawn the account. And thinking about this with my spouse, and thinking about this with Chelsea, and thinking about how do I on a daily basis make deposits and fill up that account? And how do I become a person of value, that everybody that I interact with, that I'm always trying to create so much value for the people that I come in contact with, that the time where I take a withdrawal, whether it's I have a favor to ask, or I've got, some community project that we're trying to get behind, or whatever it is, that when that withdrawal needs to be taken, that there's so much in the account, that's an easy yes for people to get behind. And also they give me grace when I screw up. And so taking this mentality and actually like taking taking stock, or actually like writing down the people in my life and where am I at on an emotional bank account of 1 to 10. And then actually putting a plan with the people in my life on how I can create value for those people and how I can go make deposits without any expectation of anything in return. And when I talk to my kids, I try to talk to my kids and explain to them, if you're a person that adds value for everybody that they come in contact with, people will always want to be around you. They'll always want to partner with you. They'll always want to interact with you. And it's because when they're around you, you make them better. And so that mentality or that philosophy has fundamentally changed the way that I see the world. It's changed the way that I interact with people. It's changed the way that I respond when somebody asks for something. Anytime that somebody's asking, I see that as an opportunity to go create value. And the organizations and the companies that I respect the most, that I look up to most, are the ones that provide really high service. They create raving fans, and they create a tremendous amount of value for anybody who interacts with them. And they also demand a premium prices because of that service and because of that value. We stay at there's a resort called Amman, that it's our favorite resort in the world. They're this niche, high, ultra high service brand all over the world. They're really expensive, but the service and the attention to detail is unmatched. And people from all over the world will seek these hotel chains out and actually travel to wherever they're at because of their brand and because of their reputation of just creating so much value for the customers who shop there. And so emotional bank accounts and being a person that's always putting more deposits in people's accounts than you're taking out has served me so well over the last 20 years. Number 4, intrinsic value versus value in the marketplace. Understanding that all people have value, in the eyes of your parents, in the eyes of God, all of us have value, but we have disproportionately different value to the marketplace. And I think the question comes up, why do 2 people go to work and one of them makes, $20 an hour and one of them makes $2,000 an hour? And the answer isn't that they're more valuable as humans, but they're definitely more valuable to the marketplace. And understanding that simple idea that, one, you can be more valuable to the marketplace. And if you create value, you get to claim a piece of that value, has been so impactful for me. I remember learning this lesson when I was 21 years old, and I'm going around and trying to get jobs at hourly um, hourly jobs or waiter jobs in Utah County. I came down there for school, and I am putting my application in at Chili's and Old Spaghetti Factory because in my mind, a waiter would make more money than an hourly employee. And I'd been a waiter in high school, and there was a stack of resumes. And I still remember like this manager at Chili's and almost kind of looked at me with like, I don't want to say disdain, but definitely like, you're never going to get this job. And I was applying at Chili's. And the reason that there's so much competition for those jobs is because a lot of people can do those jobs. And so it was this interesting thing where I didn't know what my future was, didn't know how I was going to go make my place in the world. And then I started listening to a lot of Audible and books and started changing my paradigm. And one of them that influenced me the most, this guy named Jim Rohn. And he articulates this point better than anybody else that I've ever listened to. And his point is that if somebody's paying you $8 an hour in the marketplace, it's because they could swap you out and trade you for somebody else that's making. So you're really not creating that much value. It doesn't matter how good of a person you are. And if you work on yourself and you focus on how to go create value, the market will pay you more. And when I understood that principle, it fundamentally changed my ability to earn and create wealth in the marketplace. I remember I went out and I sold door to door that first summer, and I studied every book that existed that I could get my hands on sales, the Tom Hopkins, the Zig Ziglars, the Brian Tracy's. And it's going back to these early habits of trusting that the law of the farm exists, that there's 10,000 hour principle, and then putting it to work and saying, I'm going to go work harder than anybody else, but I'm going to work on myself. I'm not going to work on my job. I've got to work in the job, but I'm going to put equal amount of time into building my human life value and my ability, my capability to create value in the marketplace. And as I did that, it transformed my career. I went out that first summer, I learned how to sell, and I made $50,000. So I went from an hourly employee that's making $8 or $10 an hour to $50,000 in 4 months. And it was so empowering. It created so much dignity to understand I now have a skill set that I can create so much value in the marketplace that a company will pay me $50,000, and they'll pay me that because I create way more than $50,000 for them. And that I did, it just didn't stop, where basically said, what other skills can I get that are worth more value in the marketplace? And as I invested in myself over the last 20 years, my ability to create value and also claim value, I haven't seen a cap to that. And I'm a believer that if you want to understand that the market will pay you exactly what you're worth, and that if you focus on yourself and you focus on your ability to create value, that you'll have an opportunity to go claim more value in the marketplace. Number 5, sharpening the saw. Anybody who knows me knows that weekly planning is the habit that makes all of the other habits better. It's the 2 hours in my week that makes all of the other hours better. But it's this idea that you've got the guy in the field or the guy in the forest that's chopping down trees, and he's working hard and he's spending the time, and the saw gets dull. And he's got 2 options. He can go take a half hour, he can take an hour and go sharpen the saw so that the effort that he does put in, it's more productive, or he can just keep working and try to gut it out. And I think so many times, most of us, we just, with the best intentions, we just try to grind our way through, or we just try to work our way through, instead of stepping back, reassessing, analyzing what went well with our plan and what didn't, and then, recommitting to invest our time, effort, and energy in the places the most productive. And so sharpening the saw, what that consists of for me is on a weekly basis, I'll wake up early. I'll do a 1-page review of my previous week. I'll identify all of the roles in my life, both personal and professional. and how I did. And then I'll recommit to be my best self. And I'll take those roles, I'll set a goal or set multiple goals, and I'll put a new plan together based off of the corrections and the information I got received to go be better the next week. And that habit and it's completely aligned with the law of the farm and the law of 10,000 hours. It's basically saying, these are the categories in my life that matter. My relationship with God, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with my kids, my finances, my career, my physical health, my personal development, and then having a plan or a system to go put in 10,000 hours of deliberate effort in those areas to go be the best that I can be. And so the last philosophy or paradigm is the paradigm of massive action. It's that life responds to effort, and that if we put in massive action, if we 10x what the normal person would go do, if we just take a lot of shots on goal, that over time we're going to go get results just because we put in so much more effort than the average person. And so much of it has to do with just starting. Where I see people that have a tough time getting results. So much of it has zero to do with intentions or character, but a lot of it has to do with a philosophy of making mistakes and fear of going out and looking bad or getting embarrassed. But by going out and just taking action, putting a plan together and putting a plan that's way bigger, that's not a little bit bigger than what's required, but that's 10 times bigger. And you just go boldly into the market and you just take massive action. You create a ton of ideas, you implement them, and then you make adjustments. But by doing that, it served me so well in life from a result standpoint and a momentum standpoint. So many times the idea that you go with ends up not, the idea you start with isn't the idea that you end with. And so I'm going to end this little session with a story that I heard at Harvard Business School. It was in a strategy course. And it ties into the idea of taking massive action and trying a lot of things and having a lot of ideas. But there's this story of this town in Alaska that was having power issues. And they would have these freezes in the winter where the power lines would become frozen, and they would get water on them, and then they would end up breaking the power line, and the city would not have power. And so the whole little town council invite everybody to come up with an idea on how they're going to go fix this problem. And there was a boy in the town council that came up with an idea on how they were going to keep the power lines from freezing over. And he said, we would have bears go dance on the power lines and break off the ice. And everybody kind of rolls their eyes at the kid and says, yeah, it's, a naive idea. And so they kind of do a follow-up question. They say, well, how would you get bears on the power line? And he says, well, you would put honey on the power line. And again, they're like, a bad idea followed by another bad idea. And they ultimately said, well, how would you get the honey to the power line? And he's like, well, you would have helicopters pour it on the power line. And ultimately how they fixed this problem is they would have helicopters fly low above the power lines, and the vibration from the blade would shake off the ice. And so many great ideas, the mamas or the papas of the best ideas are really bad ideas. And so it's this lesson about trying a lot of things, implementing a lot of things, not being scared to fail, reevaluating the mistakes, and then trying a lot more ideas. And the people that I look up to that have the most success, whether it's investing, whether it's in their physical life, whether it's in their marriage, it's because they're not scared to make mistakes, and they take a tremendous amount of action. Anyway, thank you guys for coming out, and thanks for listening to some of the things or the philosophies or the paradigms that have helped me see the world better and get better results in my life.